Aligned Voices. Really good to have you here.
Well, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
So before we begin this conversation, I think the question that I would like to ask you is on the night on a night in October 2021, you were involved in a car accident. What exactly happened on that night?
One thing I'd like to do for your audience, just from past experience, is that there's a trigger warning.
Okay.
Some of my story is quite graphic, so it
Okay.
may be disturbing for some viewers. So
Yeah.
that's something that could be the case, then they may want
Hmm.
to tune out for a little bit until they get to the end of the story,
Hmm.
and then they can come back in just as a warning.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I was in real estate at the time, and I was looking to learn how to flip houses. So I had hired a high end coach to teach me how to do that. And part of that program was for me to spend a day with him in his city to learn how to do that. I was going to basically like a job shadow, but it's not in my city. It's a 5 hour drive away from where I am. I left home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, headed
Hmm.
east, double lane highway in Canada. It's called the number one highway. It gets the Trans Canada Highway. So it's a high speed highway, goes across the country. That's the one I'm on. And I get into a neighboring province towards where I'm going with my destination, and it's dark. It's October, so it gets dark early. It's 8 o'clock at night. And I haven't eaten since noon, so I'm looking for food. On the north side of the highway to my left, across the double lane, is a lone gas station. I'm thinking, well, gas stations have like a carton of milk or the sandwich I can pick up, so I'll stop in. But this is 2021, so it's post COVID. So it's like, I don't know if this place is open. And where I'm from in Saskatchewan, everything shut down at 7 o'clock. The lights are on, but there's nobody walking around and there's no vehicles. So I'm thinking, well, it's probably not open. So I kept going. I'm in the left lane, go around a slight curve to the right, a little bit downhill, and I never saw him. 24-year-old man's on a pedal bike in the middle of my lane, and I can't avoid him. I hit him going 120 kilometers an hour. For those who aren't used to metric, that's about 75 miles an hour. I hit him center of my car. His body comes up over top of the hood, smashes my windshield, bounces over my vehicle, and lands somewhere in the highway behind me. I can't see through my windshield; it's destroyed. I can't see where I'm going, so I'm in a little bit of a panic mode. The left side of the highway is right outside my driver's side window, so I use that to figure out where I am. I hit the brakes hard, come to a stop. I hit my flashing lights and call 911. Chatted with her briefly, and we realized that I'm really not injured. The airbags in my car didn't even go off. His body hadn't slowed down the vehicle anywhere near enough for that to happen. So I didn't have that airbag in my face. So I was okay. But my concern was, okay, what about him? I'm trained in emergency first aid. I let her know that and said, well, why don't I go try to help? When I do something, try to see if I can do something for this guy. I don't know if he's alive. I don't know if he's dead. I don't know anything about what condition he's in. She agreed, but it's a moonless night. So, and I'm wearing similar to this, I've got a really dark golf shirt on. I've got blue jeans, which means I'm not real visible. So I need to be careful. The little flashlight on an iPhone really doesn't do very much. So I start walking back. The gas station that I had passed shortly before the accident is not that far away. So it gives me enough light to be able to see what's happening on the highway, what I can find. I find him lying in the middle of the highway, face down, his head facing oncoming traffic. I can't see his face because his arm is up around where his head is. So I can't see his face to see if he's breathing, if his eyes are open. He's not moving. I don't notice broken bones or blood or anything, so I really don't know too much. She warns me that it's really unsafe to go out there to wait for the police to arrive and will cordon off the highway to give them some help. Right at the point that I got to where he was laying, a vehicle comes around the curve. It's a mid-sized SUV coming towards me. And my first instinct is, well, great, I can get some help. I can flag them down. They can help me block off the highway to warn others, and we can do some first aid for this guy. They didn't slow down. They never saw me. And more importantly, they didn't see him. The instinct when you're driving is to never hit something with your tires. And you either going to swerve to avoid it, or you swerve to take it between the tires so that it passes under your vehicle so you don't lose control. I don't know why they chose what they did. They swerved left and it took the body between the front tires. So the vehicle goes right over top of, right in front of me at highway speed. And there's not enough clearance under a vehicle that size for a human body. So the body starts to tumble. So you hear the clunk, clunk, clunk of the body under the vehicle as it passes over. Because of the nature of the lack of space, it grabs his body. So when the vehicle passed over, it grabs him, flips him 180 degrees, and launches him 7 feet in the air and 50 feet down the highway like an arrow in the air. Body eventually comes down, lands, hits the concrete, rolls, and is across the right-hand lane when it stops moving. The SUV braked for about 3 seconds and left. They hit the gas and left. They panicked. We never saw them again. They didn't come back. They didn't check in that I know of. And yeah, they just panicked and they left the scene. At this point, 911 operator goes quiet. I'm not sure what to say to me, and I wasn't knowing what to say either after what we just saw. She eventually comes back on and says, well, there's nothing you can do for him. If your collision didn't kill him, there's a very large likelihood that will have. So first aid's really not going to be helpful. What we need to do is make you safe, like get you off the highway. Somebody who's going to try to avoid hitting him is going to possibly hit you. So I'm starting to walk back towards my car. And at this point, more lights and lots of noise come from behind me. It's another vehicle. This time it's a semi with a flatbed trailer. And I can see it coming. I know what's going to happen. And I am trying to do whatever I can to prevent it from happening. So I'm screaming at the truck. I'm waving my arm, trying to get their attention. They see me because they took their foot off the gas. That engine sound when you slow down a big diesel engine. It was pretty apparent that, yeah, they saw me. But to try to move a vehicle that big was going to be incredibly difficult to do. And yeah, there was no way he could. The body wasn't that far away. And the driver's side front tire contacted the body across the pelvis of the body and ran over him again for a third time. So at that point, I get back to my car and just, yeah, I'm not doing very well from everything I just saw and heard. And the truck stopped up near my car. I could see their taillights flashing in my through my cracked windshield. Police arrived a few minutes later. I got out to meet them and the paramedics and the EMTs, and the truck had left. They didn't stay. They also left the scene without talking to anyone. I have no idea who the person was. I don't know, male, female. I don't know anything. Couldn't give you a description of the truck other than the fact it's a semi with a flatbed. That's all I knew. I didn't see a license plate, anything. They left. As far as I know, they hadn't reported back either. They also panicked about what happened. So at that point, it was, now what? What do I do to now move on from something that was pretty dramatic for me to go through?
And what happened 10 days after this incident? What was your state? How were you holding up? Like, were you having flashes, or were you constantly thinking about the incident? And how are you holding up? Because this is a very unfaithful event, right? And it's very difficult for us to forget as well, if especially when we are witnessing something like this.
Yeah.
So how were you holding up?
Yeah, the immediate response from my brain was a lot of the what ifs. You try to make reason out of something that doesn't really have any logic to it. Like, I couldn't understand why he was there. I couldn't understand how this had happened. Like, how could I be involved in 3 separate accidents, one after the other, in a very, very short time frame? And it's trying to resolve some of that. Your brain starts to tell stories. And what it ended up doing for me was starting to do the what ifs. Like, what if I'd left home sooner? What if I had stopped for food? Maybe I'd check in the gas station. Maybe I wouldn't have hit him. If I'd come through the daylight, maybe I would had seen him on the highway sooner, and it could have avoided him easy enough. But unfortunately, all the what ifs in the world don't do any good. It doesn't change anything that happened. It still happened. It doesn't change anything. It changes my mindset a little bit, but not enough to really make a difference. So it was a lot of trying to not lay blame. Part of what happened with the investigation with the corporal I spoke with that night, he's the one who did the investigation. We spoke again the next morning. And the last thing I saw before I hit him was that his bike was a 45-degree angle away from me. He's wearing a dark blue zip up sweater over top of a long white sleeve shirt. He's got dark sweats on, a silver bike, no reflectors. So really difficult to see. And he's looking straight down at his handlebars and he's not pedaling. And part of the investigation, when they went through what I saw and then through things about his life that they were able to find overnight, they are nearly 100% certain that him being on that highway at that point in front of me was completely intentional. He was committing suicide. He was there to end his life, and he was going to use me to do it. So he'd gone from the left-hand shoulder of the highway, which is perfect for him because I was in the left lane. He coasted in front of me and just waited to be hit. And there really wasn't anything I could have done to prevent it, especially at the speed I was driving. I can't react that fast as a human to be able to avoid him. So it's an accident that I could not have avoided, and they admitted to that. And I was never charged with a crime of any kind because it wasn't something I could have prevented. I wasn't found to be at fault. That helped a little bit as far as the blame piece, but at the same time, there was a lot of the thoughts in my head were around what could I have done better to try to stop him from dying. Like when I went to see him on the highway before the second vehicle came, before the SUV came around the curve, could I have taken the risk of grabbing him by the arm and dragging him off the side of the highway so that the vehicle didn't have a chance to hit him? But at the same time, that wasn't logical because I made the assumption that somebody coming around curve is going to see us, is going to see me, is going to see him, and isn't going to hit us. I made that assumption, but unfortunately, that just isn't the way it worked. So there's a lot of contemplating. Okay, so do I lay that much blame on myself on something that really wasn't my fault?
So, you know, did you actually stop blaming yourself? Because I think when, when an event like this is very fresh in our mind, we are asking so many questions. We are blaming ourselves. We are trying to make a sense of everything, around us. As you rightly said, that you were trying to understand if you could have provided it, right? But then still, I think you were still looking for answers as to, what happened. Was it my fault? uh, so did you like stop blaming, or did it take a lot of time? Do you still blame yourself? How do you feel about the event now?
I don't blame myself for what happened. I know that it was something he planned. It was something that he was trying to get a result for himself. And what that did to other people, don't think that really entered his mind. We don't ever know that for sure, obviously. But um, for me, going through it over the next several months, the blame, yes, eventually disappeared because it really wasn't my fault. There was nothing I could have logically done to prevent the outcome in any of the three collisions, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
even the SUV, it's like I was assuming, no, they're going to see us, they'll stop. The fact that they swerved left and took them and underneath the vehicle, that I can't predict that. The semi, it's just too big a vehicle. I did all the warning I could based on the circumstance. That's all I could have done. Right. So it's at the end of the day, I did nothing wrong. So now it's just a matter of, okay, how do I put my life back together from the
Mm-hmm.
experience that I had just been through?
So how difficult or how easy was it, and how much time did it take? Did you, have to, were you able to do it on your own, or did you require support? maybe counseling, or maybe talking to people, uh, support groups. So how did you hold yourself back together and come to a realization, uh, that no, this wasn't your fault, this was something that he had done, or maybe uh, mm, what help did you take? Was it very easy for you, or did it take a long time?
Yeah. Going into the day after the accident, my parents came to get me because my car was totaled. I couldn't drive it anywhere. So my parents came from Saskatchewan to come get me. They came about 1:30 in the afternoon the next day. So lots of time to think, which is really not that great a
Mm-hmm.
result for me, but at the same time, it was okay. I ended up getting a ride home with my parents, and on the way back, I got a hold of my healthcare provider from work to start to seek counseling, to talk to someone, because I was already starting to feel pretty bad about everything that was going on. I need someone to talk to. So I contacted them, and their first response was, "Oh, okay, we can book you in. How about next Thursday?" The accident happened on a Wednesday night,
Mm-hmm.
so this was a Thursday. So they wanted
Mm-hmm.
me to wait a week to actually get to talk to someone, and I said, "Well, no, that's actually not acceptable because I need help today." And they said the best that they could do is put me on a call list. And if somebody has time from being done their other calls, they'll give you a call. It may be today, it may be tomorrow, it may be in 4 days. We don't know. And that's all they could offer. I said, okay, then I'll take what I can get. About 5 hours later, it's about 7 o'clock in the evening. I get a phone call from a young lady, younger voice, and the conversation was interesting. Like, she's a counselor, but I'm someone who's going through a traumatic event, so it's
Mm-hmm.
more PTSD related. So it's a little more severe than just having just a counseling session.
True.
And she was ill prepared for it. I gave her a brief rundown of my story, and unfortunately, the response I was getting to anything I was saying was like a kindergarten teacher, where you're trying to placate a child who's skinned their knee on the playground. It's okay. You'll be all right. It's all right. You'll be okay. No, not the kind of a response you're going to say to a full grown male who's very, very highly intelligent and struggling. Yeah, that caused me to shut down. The conversation wasn't going very far after that. When she started doing that, yeah, I stopped. I really wasn't contributing much to the conversation. It ended shortly thereafter. So it wasn't helpful in any way. And at the end of the call, she said, "Well, if you want to get some more help from our office, just call back in. We'll find somebody to help."
Okay.
So their response basically to someone who just went through a traumatic event is that you want me to relive it again with somebody new, retell my whole story, and start from scratch every time I call. That's not helpful. That doesn't even
Absolutely.
make sense, right? So it's like, yeah,
Absolutely.
that's not going to help me. And I recognize that and said, no, thank you. I will find another way to deal with this. And I stopped. Yeah, I ended up seeing a psychologist for a little while, but the classical psychology method wasn't really working for me. I was finding it was ineffective. I went through 4 sessions, but it got to a point where it was going to take a very, very long time to go to point A to point B to try and connect the dots, and I was finding
Mm-hmm.
it a struggle, that for it to actually be working. I did at the same time see a life coach who was trained in neuro linguistic programming,
Mm-hmm.
NLP. That helped tremendously and was getting results very quickly, and that was more conducive for me. So for people who are saying that no, don't go see a psychologist, that's not what I'm saying, not by any stretch. But you need to connect with the person that you're talking to in a way that you find you're getting the help that you need. So don't be afraid to change, is what my recommendation is. Not to not go for help. No, that's a bad idea. You still need to try to get help, but just make sure you're connecting with the person to be able to get help in the right way. For me, I found that the second person I talked to went through 10 sessions with her, and that helped tremendously to settle down my nervous system. My issue was triggers. Like, I'd be triggered by the slightest little thing in my day. My stress levels normally a 6 or a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10. It was a constant 6 or 7 all day, and it only change when I get triggered by something. So I'll be driving and somebody in dark clothing will be walking on the sidewalk. Well, what does my brain do? My reptilian brain is designed to protect me. What does it warn me? Oh, look out, they're going to jump out at you. And that thought comes in your head. And what do? Well, it's a panic attack. The panic
Absolutely.
is going to happen. When in reality, it's not going to. Like, that's not normal, right? What happened to me was
Mm-hmm.
unusual.
Absolutely.
I've driven how many hundreds of thousands of miles in my lifetime, and no one's ever jumped in front of my vehicle. That's a first, right? It's not a normal occurrence, but your brain doesn't think like that. It's trying to protect you from it happening again,
Absolutely.
right?
The
That's just
brain
the
the
nature of
brain
work.
has witnessed it, right? So the image is quite clear. It derives from the experience of the past, right? So
Yeah,
the triggers are still there.
yeah. So
So
and that's where
does it happen still with you? Like, are you
no,
still cautious
no,
when
no.
s-
I've been able to resolve a lot of what happened over. It's been 5 years now, almost 5 years, and
mm-hmm.
it's over that length of time. It took a long time. It Don't get me wrong. It
It
didn't
did.
take me
It
6
did
months.
it.
It took me way
It
longer
did
than
it.
that.
Absolutely.
It took a long time to get to the point where I was even talking about the accident. It took me 10 months to start to tell people. When the accident first happened, I didn't tell anyone. I told my boss so that they were aware of it, but nobody else at work knew. I told my immediate family, a lot of my friends, nobody knew. I
Mm-hmm.
refused to tell anybody out of fear of being labeled. I didn't want to be labeled a killer. Somebody
Absolutely.
died. A 24-year-old
Absolutely.
man's dead because of the accident I was in, regardless of who was actually at fault.
Mm-hmm.
Part of me still believed that people were going to blame me, and that's why I didn't tell anyone. So that slowed my recovery down because I wasn't talking about it. Getting it out and talking about it and having communication with somebody who will understand and listen is a rather important part of trying to get through it. And I delayed that by quite a bit simply because I was fearful of what people would think. 10 months after the
Mm-hmm.
accident, I got to a point where I was ready to talk about it. And one of the things I did right away was I wrote a book. I wrote a book about my experience, not for the value it was going to have, not for the money I would make. That was never the intent of why I did it. I did it to get my story out and to be able to put it on paper to educate others in the end is what I ended up doing with it. But I got it down on paper to say, okay, it's like talking, right? When you do that, when you journal. So I wrote it all out, everything that happened, the things I tried in order to be able to get better, the things I was doing up to that point, and then I published it onto Amazon and released it. So it's driving out of darkness was what I called it because it's kind of a play on words for me because it happened in the middle of a moonless night, but it's also
Mm-hmm.
the darkness that I end up being in as a result of the accident I was trying to get out of. So I ended up doing that, and it was only a couple of months later from that point that I decided that I wanted to do something with it. That I didn't want this whole experience to be just something that I experienced and nobody else knew about. So I decided to become a life coach to teach others what I learned. I learned a lot in the 10 months up to that point, almost a little over a year at the point I became a life coach to understand myself, to understand how to get through something that's difficult like that and how to get the help that you need. I struggled really badly for 10 months to try to get that help, and I don't wish that on anyone. So if I can help somebody else get the help they need and be able to find ways to get better quicker, then it's well served by me to be able to do that to help other people. And it was shortly after I became a life coach that I started public speaking, doing sessions like this. This is my 134th presentation in just under 3 years since I started presenting. I started in September of 2023 is when I started presenting uh, to different groups. I've been on the radio. I've been on podcasts, a number of podcasts, 2 dozen podcasts now. I did a TED talk last fall. I even went to that level. I went to Cairo, Egypt to do a TED talk with for 300 people. It's up on YouTube. I'm now have that as part of my credit. So yeah, so it's taken me a long time to recover, but at the same time, I'm trying to use it for something good.
So, one question that arises in my mind is like, after this incident happened, you said you did not open up to a lot of people around you, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, Do like, is it the usual trait that usually men follow when versus compared to women, like who express it, who are able to express it pretty quickly? Or do you think it is same for both, like it's same for everyone, that it takes time, they take time, they to express and to tell someone that no, I'm not okay. I was just putting up a face, but I'm not okay inside. There's something just that's breaking, that's something that's not good. And I'm like crying for help, and I want somebody to understand that and direct me to that support. Do you think that it's only it's difficult for men, or it is difficult for everyone who has experienced an incident like this, or maybe trauma?
Yeah, I would say that it is going to depend on the individual person to a large extent, but at the same time, there are definitely traits of male versus female that come into play. Women have a much easier time talking about emotion. Men have been taught for years. It's the whole alpha male mentality that you see. It's the John Waynes. Um, it's the Captain T. Kirk. It's all the figures that you see in mainstream media and movies and TV shows, and just the way men are portrayed in even commercials. For years, like that's how I was raised. Was big boys don't cry. They don't show emotion. Men suck it up and they just deal with your shit. Like no one else wants to hear about it. It's
Mm-hmm.
that sort of mentality where it's like there are still men that believe that that's what society expects. It's changing. It has gotten better over the years, over the last few years, especially since COVID. But at the same time, it's still pervasive in the way that people think. And I'm no different. Like I was the same way. When the accident happened, I tried to get help and I got the reaction that I did is one of the worst things that could have happened to me because it shut me down. I'm going, well, no, nobody really wants to hear about this, so I just need to deal with it. I just need to shut
Mm-hmm.
up, go into my little cave, and just deal with it. And no one else needs to know I'm struggling. And that's the part that becomes very difficult. And you take from that, you understand why the suicide rate in men is 4 times what it is for women. It's an 80-20 ratio of suicide, successful suicides
Absolutely.
in society, right? That are men, right? And it's
Yes.
because we don't talk. It's because we have been taught, been trained for so many decades that our opinion doesn't matter, and us showing emotion is not acceptable. You don't do that,
And
right?
that
Because
men
nobody else,
don't cry, men don't
men don't
cry,
do it,
right?
right? And that whole mentality, right? It
Absolutely.
is getting better, and it's what I teach against. Like I'm very open and vulnerable with people
Mm-hmm.
by telling my story. I
Mm-hmm.
understand that. There's some people who will say, no, you shouldn't have done that. I'm like, that's okay. That's your opinion. It's not mine. Because somebody at some point has to stand up and say, this isn't okay. When people like me go through experiences that we have, we need to be able to talk to someone. We need to be able to open up to the people in our world so that we can get better, get the support we need from those that are closest to us. And that in the end was where I ended up finding the largest help was the people that were closest to me and being able to feel comfortable enough with my story that I could then start to tell others. Did I get negative reactions? Absolutely, without a doubt. I would never name names, I never indicate who they
Mm-hmm.
were, but there are those people who did the opposite of what I expected. I got shunned by some people because they don't want to hear about my struggles. They don't want to hear that somebody who's very much an alpha male type, who's very much an extrovert, who's a teacher, highly trained professional, and in the work world who
And you've
struggled
you,
and
you've been
lost
a
their identity.
volleyball team referee as well, right?
Yeah, my referee as well. Yeah, yeah, referee and
Mm-hmm.
coach. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
at a very high level, and I actually walked away from that sport for 3 years because of the mental struggle that I was having. There are people who disagree with that, and you know what? It's okay because it's my life, and I will lead it the
It's
way that I
okay.
so choose in order to get better. And for me, at that time, the best decision for me was to walk away for a period of time to get better, and I did that. I was one of the top in the country in Canada for what I do, and I was involved with Volleyball Canada doing some very high level work. But I walked away because I had to. I need to work on me. And now that I'm better, I'm back to that world now. I dipped my toe in this last year, but in this next year's, yeah, I'm back to doing some of the work I was doing before. Yeah.
So any of those, those people who had shunned you, who had, maybe hurled negative remarks at you, did any one of them come back to you and said, the time when you were telling us, it didn't make sense to us, and we were completely against it. We did not recognize it. We did not realize, but now we do. Did you also witness some of them who had, come back to you, approached you, and said, it does make sense. It's not spoken about much, and maybe that person was going through some tragedy or trauma.
As surprising as it may be, the answer is no. No one
Okay.
has. The part that, not to mislead you in any way,
Mm-hmm.
some of the reactions that I have were actually silence, where I would
Mm-hmm.
start to tell my story and go, okay, this is the accident that happened. That part's fine. People accept that part. As soon as I start talking about the emotion, talking about the struggle, talking about the heartache and the pain and all of the emotional part of the result of what happened, is when people shut down. They can't hear it. They don't want to hear it. Now, part of it is because they don't want to see the pain that I go through. They don't want me reliving that. But it's also partly on them because they can't see themselves in the mirror. Like, I've taken a hard look at myself and my life as a result of what happened, as the accident being a catalyst for doing that. But there's people who have a very difficult time dealing with emotion, where they have
Mm-hmm.
enough trouble dealing with their own. They don't want to hear about someone else's. And I can
And
understand. I understand it,
I
but at
get
the
it.
same time, yeah, it's hard for me as the person going through it to suddenly have somebody that I've known for 30 years who has not mentioned it since. So I see
And
that person over and over, and they never once want to talk about that part of my
absolutely.
life, even though it's a large
Ab-
part of my life now. They won't
Absolutely.
talk about it, right?
And do you think men might ask help and support in, like, maybe secrecy, rather than, asking it openly?
Yeah, there are some who do. I am a part of two different men's groups. There was a
Mhm.
third one I was in as well. So I've been involved with three different men's groups where we invite men in and I tell my story. I'm very open and candid about it. And I explain a lot of the heartache and the difficulties and the
Mhm.
struggles. And they see that, well, you were doing amazingly well. And it's only been 5 years of something as serious as of what you went through. How did you do that? Because I don't think I could. And I've gotten that statement a few times where it's like, if I had lived the experience you went through, I'd be a mess. Like, how did you get through that? So it's the story beyond, where people who are interested in developing themselves, those who are interested in looking at themselves, they're the ones who get the most benefit from listening to the second half of the story, where they
Mhm.
find out, okay, here's the heartache, here's the pain, here's the struggles that were months long struggles, years long struggles of trying
Absolutely.
to get through what happened and trying to make sense of all of it and really creating a new life for myself, because I'm not the same person I was before the accident. It made a drastic change in who I am as a result of what happened.
And your TED talk is called Life Will Hit You, right?
Yeah.
So what happens next? Like, what happens next is a real story.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So uh, Canada just announced a national men's health strategy, because I think 1 in 3 men still see asking for help as weakness. So if
Yes.
you could speak to a man wearing that mask right now, uh, the "I am fine" mask, what would you say?
Yeah. Well, I'm one of the ones who live that. People ask, "Oh, how you doing?" I'm good, and that's a pretty common response for people who simply don't want to talk about what happened. or what their struggles are, because part of that's the fear of being labeled is like for me it was the fear of being labeled a killer from the accident part, but there's a much deeper version of that. It's
Absolutely.
being seen as weak, is being seen as incapable of managing the emotions that I'm trying to handle. I'm trying to keep my life together. What people see on the surface is this strong, solid male type, which is the persona that I put on as a mask. But in reality, behind closed doors, there's 1,000 things, there's 10,000 thoughts in my head that nobody ever sees and nobody ever hears. And it's those struggles are the ones that make men do the drastic things that they do. So for somebody who's having the struggles to actually have a conversation with somebody, it's trying to find that one person that you know will never judge you for what you say. Finding that one ear, that one individual in your life that you know isn't going to judge you for it and is actually going to listen and actually try to walk with you through that. Right. And
Absolutely.
it's difficult to find. Like, who do you trust? Right. I know within the first responder world, we've run into that. I've done keynote speaking with police and 911 operators where they talk about it and they go, well, I can't tell the person who I work with because if I did that, the story gets into the locker room and I get ridiculed for it. So even within their world where you'd think they would understand, they won't even go to their own people then within their world that would be the closest to them because of the fear that they're going to tell others and I'm going to be labeled that I just can't handle myself and I can't be trusted on the job. So
Absolutely.
it's tough,
Yes, it is.
right?
So talking about, labeling, you in one of your social media platform, you had expressed that you were doing things everyone was expecting you to do, and you gave up your own wants and your own desires to be a people pleaser so that you get,
Yeah.
you so that they accept you. So that's a mask that, a lot of us are wearing, right? And so when did you first realize you were performing a version of yourself that wasn't really you?
And that's where the accident becomes a catalyst to me looking at a larger piece of my life.
Mm-hmm.
When you take a look at what really happened and what was it I was really recovering from? Was my recovery everything to do with PTSD because of the accident? In reality, it wasn't. And that's something I've been working on over the last couple of weeks is I'm writing my sequel to my book. I'm writing another one now, which talks about the deeper philosophy behind how did I get better? And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of what I realized is that I wasn't recovering from PTSD. I wasn't recovering from what the accident did to me mentally. I was recovering from everything else that I looked at because the accident happened. I started looking at, okay, so what belief system do I have? What is it that drives me? Your belief system is basically learned as a child between birth and age 7 is where a lot of our core beliefs come from. And one of those beliefs that comes from back then is the one I talk about in my TED talk, where it's the belief as a child that I'm simply not enough. I wasn't hugged by my mother early in life because of the nature of how her relationship was with her father. So it's a generational thing. But as a child, what do you see? You don't have the life experience, right? So
Absolutely.
you end up having this belief from, oh, my mother didn't hug me. Oh, she doesn't love me. But there's no basis in reality for that. So I felt that, okay, I'm not enough. So I need to do something to get her attention, something to show I have value so that my mother will love me. So I go through life constantly doing that, constantly trying to get acceptance from people because of something that happened as a child. And the child saw it and saw it for something it really wasn't, but it created a belief. So I started fighting a lot of those things. I started taking a harder look at what is it that makes me who I am, that creates now that belief system, then creates the habits I have, habit of people pleasing, a habit of always catering to other people, a habit of always giving more than I ever receive because I'm trying to create my value instead of it just being who I am, being valuable. So that's the habits that's created, and it creates an emotion from there, and it's kind of compounds into other parts of my life because of all of that. So when the accident happened, I suddenly am taking a hard look at everything, and it was really the catalyst that started to be growing on a path to become someone new. Because the instinct when you go through something that's more of a PTSD related event is you're trying to survive. I was in
Absolutely.
survival mode for a while, and it was that's where it's just I'm just trying to get through this day to try to feel better. Okay, if I just wait long enough, time will heal it and I will feel better. There will come a time I will just get better. But that's not reality. It's not ever going to work that way. You need to do it yourself. And I learned that pretty quickly that I needed to step up and do something. So I started challenging my beliefs. I started challenging those things. I started having the right conversations. I started changing my habits. And in the end, me trying to recover from an accident and recover from PTSD to become who I was never going to happen because that person I was doesn't exist anymore.
And talking about the accident which actually happened in the past, most of us, in fact, you've also pointed this out, that living in the past actually kills you. But we often ponder over what had happened, and not living in the moment, or how to transform our future. So we often think about the past event, and it haunts us, it troubles us, and we are still in you know we go into we are traumatized, constantly
Yeah.
traumatized. What was the exact moment you decided to stop living in October 2021 and start living in the present? Because I understand that there were series of support that you had seeked, and you were talking to people, you were talking to the right people. It took you a while to get connected to uh, you know something which was working for you. So when was that moment when you decided, no, I have to let go of this? I was not responsible, it was not my fault.
I think the it wasn't really one specific moment in time. I think it was building over time. But I would say the point where I made a conscious decision to make a serious change is when I started to tell my story 10 months after the accident. When I wrote my
Hmm.
book, that was the starting point of flipping that switch and going, okay, where does this go from here? I've done enough healing, I've done enough things to at least sort out a chunk of what I was dealing with. And at that point, when I had my book almost finished writing in September, I started it in August. By September, I'd kind of gotten the framework of it together, and I looked at it and kind of went, but now what? Like, where does this go to? Stop, like you were saying, living in the past. It's like that timeline. On the left side, here's all the past, living back there, living with the accident, living and just stuck. Versus the center line, the middle part is the being mindful every day, being mindful of who you're with, being open and present with people. And then the right side is the whole future piece. Okay, so where am I going? What am I doing? What am I going to become as a result of all of this? And that's where the decision I made at that point when my book was almost finished, that okay, what am I going to do? And that's when the whole life coach decision came in. That's where the decision was to take a harder look at, okay, so what really do I want to become from all of this? Like, what can I do to make this now create me into a better person? Because I know I can't. My reality kind of struck at that point that I can't ever be the person I was before, because that's not going to work. It needs to be somebody new.
And Canada just announced a national men's health strategy because of the data that we were discussing. Because four in five suicides are male. We were just discussing about it. Uh, you have been through it, you have witnessed it closely, you have seen men struggling and seeking help. What do you think uh, you know are the gaps, and where can it be improvised?
Part of what I'm seeing, even within the city that I live in, I had a meeting yesterday morning with a gentleman that I do work with men's mental health in our city. You take a look around at all the programs that exist. how many programs exist for men, with the exception of one. What programs actually exist for men with mental health? The one that does exist is actually an addictions treatment center.
Mm-mm.
Well, that's to the point where it's gone to the extreme. Where's all the work before that? There's lots of programs that help women with struggles that they're going through. There's those for children, for adolescents, and where's the programs for men? Like you said, the national programs being started. Okay, so that's from a federal level. So what
Mm-hmm.
about the provincial? What about the city level and the municipal level? Like, what is it that's happening that is going to help men to start to have those conversations in an environment where they don't feel threatened? And part of what we talked about is that setting up seminars, setting up sessions for men, which we've been doing a little bit of. We're going to start to ramp that up just within our area as a starting point to go, look, come talk with other men, because we are the ones that are the safe zone for you at this point. If you don't have a safe zone at home where you can't talk to your wife because you always get ridiculed, well, then come talk to us. Because we're finding that there are men who are more than willing to talk to other men because they know that that person is going to understand because they're a guy. Like, they're not going to judge me for something because they've likely lived through very similar experiences to what I myself am currently going through. Especially when some of us who are more vocal, who are willing to stand up and say, I've been divorced twice. I have an ex-wife. I have kids that I'd had 50-50 custody, where I've had the fights. I've had the disagreements. I've had the struggles. I've had all of that in my time. I've been suicidal. I've been under suicide watch. I've been into counseling sort of thing. So those pieces are part of my life that makes me who I am. And I've gotten through those struggles. If you yourself are struggling with that, come talk to me because I understand. It's a safe zone. And I think that's the important piece that we need to just get the message out to men, is that there are groups like the ones that we are trying to create where you are in a safe zone because there's nothing you can say that would surprise us. And there's nothing you can say that would actually have me judge you because I may have lived through the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. I understand it. And I survived it.
You did, and I think you're a hope to so many men who are like struggling in silence, and I think they have a hope to express, to heal, to transform their life. Definitely. So this actually brings us to the last question. I just wish this podcast never end because it was really, good having a very different perspective. Have we were discussing about something which has not been spoken for many years, and which is actually, if not dealt with, can grow into a bigger issue. So men's mental health is definitely important, because men do shoulder a lot of responsibilities as well. So I think we should be focusing on men's health, mental health as well. So if there's a man somewhere, who's struggling, who's battling something in silence, and maybe out of shame, or maybe out of pressure, or any other factors, not being able to open up, uh, to go ahead and seek help, what would you advise, what would you tell him today through this podcast?
Yeah, that's one of the things that we had talked about earlier, was to find somebody that you have that trust in, to have an honest conversation, somebody you can open up to honestly, where you're not wearing a mask, or you're not pretending to be somebody you're not. Chances are, if you've been struggling with this for a while, you've probably got multiple masks on, depending on the people you're around. There'll be your friends, there'll be your family, there'll be your wife and your kids, there'll be work, which will be a different mask. And all those masks have something in common. They all show you as being, I'm okay, I'm fine. When in reality, there's those 10,000 thoughts that are running through your head, and a lot of them are really not very good. And it drags you down, it weighs on you. It's emotionally draining trying to carry that every single day. So trying to find someone where you can have that conversation, and someone that you can trust, that's not going to judge you for what you're going to say, isn't going to think any less of you. They're going to understand it, that it's a process to be able to talk about it, to be able to get it out, to be able to find a way to manage that, manage the emotions that are attached to it. Trying to get past something that's really a struggle, it has a lot to do with dealing with the emotions and dealing with being able to look in the mirror and admit that it's okay not to be okay. Admitting that, yeah, I'm not doing the greatest right now, but I know I can work through this and I know I can get better. It's having a defeated mentality that's going to be more harmful than anything, saying that, well, I can never get better. Well, that's not true. I know that from what I experienced. I know you can get better because I've done it. I'm somebody who's lived it. But trying to find that one person, okay, who do you have you can talk to? And sometimes it means you need to reach outside beyond your circle of influence. Maybe it's not a friend or a family member. Maybe it's somebody who's a counselor. Maybe it's somebody who's a psychologist. Maybe it's somebody like me who runs men's groups who just, you come and talk to us. Because every single person in the group that I'm in has a different story. We all come from different places. I'm the only one who's experienced a severe trauma. But it doesn't mean they don't understand some of the struggles I went through, because they connect with general stress, like general things. Like I went through a divorce as well. Somebody's been through divorce will have some of the same symptoms as me going through a car accident. Like this stress manifests itself in different ways where there's a lot of commonality. And it's talking to those men to say, and we understand and go, yeah, and here's some of the things that we did to try to deal with that and try to deal with the emotions and try to deal with the heartache that's a result of it. And you start to learn, you start to get ideas from men who have been there and have walked through it.
And before we leave, do you have a copy of your books handy for our, audience to see? And if you could tell us where they could,
Uh, do
buy
I?
them.
Yeah, I do actually. Give me a second. I'll grab
Yeah,
it.
sure, sure.
Yeah. So that's
Wow.
my book.
Okay. So when's the next coming up?
The next one is currently in editing.
Hmm.
Haven't got a title yet. Haven't got a cover to it or anything. But that one's going to be psychologically much deeper than this one. This one's just my story, and it's written at a very raw state in my life. Whereas I was only 10 months after the accident, I was still really raw. I didn't go back to change the language of it because it shows the mind state that I was in at the time. And I wrote it from a very raw level, and I left it that way
And,
intentionally.
and
So
if
it's
somebody wants to buy the book, where
on
can they?
Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
Amazon and on Barnes and Noble. It's found in
Okay.
both.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually also a Kindle book. So if somebody likes to do it off a reader, there's that version as well that you can get. And I do have a website, which is just my first and last name, JacquesDelorme.com is my website. I've got other resources that I recommend. I was a voracious reader for quite a while. I read 56 books in 1 year at one point. So
Ooh,
I've taken some of the best books that I've read, the ones that helped me the most to get through some of the struggles I was going through, and I put them as up on my website as a recommended resource for people to use. And
wonderful.
it's one that does have an affiliate link, but what I do with that is I never make money off any of it. Anybody who buys stuff, I get a little bit of money from Amazon. I take it and I donate it to men's mental health groups, and I find a different organization each year to donate to, and I donate all the money back. My intent is to help people, and I do that as best I can. I have a new course that's up on my site as well on building a morning routine. My next book will be out. I'll be doing some coaching starting from there once that's finished. So there'll be other resources that will be up quite shortly. And if anyone wants to reach out, Driving Out of Darkness is my book, but it's also what I use for Instagram and my fan page off of Facebook and TikTok. They're all the same. It's at Driving Out of Darkness. And I do have what's called Raw and Real, which is a weekly uh, posting that I do on different topics related to men's mental health. I do that every week on Instagram just to educate people.
Wonderful. I think I'm really honored to have you on the podcast because we haven't spoken much about mental health, and uh, we actually wanted to bring it uh, to the front. And thank you so much. We're really honored to have you on our podcast. And I know that it would definitely make a difference to all the listeners who are listening, and you are there for them. So if they want to reach out to you, you have already provided. And even, in fact, we would list down, where they can actually get in
Yeah.
touch with you, how they can approach you. So thank you so much
Well, thank you.
for your time.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.